Good afternoon, everyone. The death penalty in the United States is one of the most controversial topics for a heated debate. It is the most severe of punishments for committing a capital crime. However, it's not as effective as many would think. On the surface, the death penalty may look like the appropriate punishment for the most heinous of crimes. But I'm going to tell you why it isn't. So as we dig a little deeper, I want you to think about this. If you were convicted of a crime you did not commit and you were condemned, would you still believe in the effectiveness of the death penalty? I have provided a chart right over here of supporters and opponents of the death penalty, the views they have on morality, fairness, and effectiveness. So how many innocent people were put to death on death row? In the article, I Die in Shame, The State of God is Not Fallible, Arthur Risen and Mark Hayden stated, the Innocent Project has estimated that anywhere from 2 to 5% of currently incarcerated Americans are innocent. So it stands to reason that not everyone who's put on death row is guilty of committing the crimes that they were convicted of. More than 160 people have been wrongly convicted and sentenced to death in the U.S. They've been exonerated since 1970. One in particular comes to mind, Charles Ray Finch of North Carolina. He can be seen in the photo right there. His conviction was overturned last month due to false forensic testimony and an eyewitness identification manipulated by the police, making him the 166th death row inmate to be exonerated since 1973. It's sad to think that 43 years of life he's lost, but I bet that's nothing in comparison to the eternity based off of a wrongful conviction. The next thing I want you to think about is, does it truly provide justice and closure for the victims' families? Many think it does, but in some cases, it in fact does not. In the November 1st, 2017 edition of the Progressive magazine, there was a featured article written by Eric Gunn entitled The Unlikely Opponents of the Death Penalty. In the article, Eric discusses issues victims' families face, stating that many are compelled by their faith to find alternative convictions. It does not bring closure. It just extends the trauma and creates a whole new set of victims. Many people often appeal to their concept of mercy as a reason to condone anyone to death, regardless of their transgressions. I think it's safe to say that not all victims' families believe an eye for an eye is the solution, nor does it bring the justice that they so desire. But is it an effective deterrent for committing capital offenses? The current consensus on that is that it's not very effective. International communities have seen murder rates decline after the death penalty was abolished. According to a study conducted by Abdurrahman Center involving 11 countries, 10 of those have experienced a decline in murder rates in the decade following abolition. This is not just seen abroad. The data is also consistent with the state-level data in the United States. It has repeatedly shown lower murder rates in states that do not have the death penalty versus states that do, suggesting that the death penalty is not as effective as it was once perceived. Is it a humane form of punishment for the mentally ill? Not all people on death row are innocent. However, many on death row are mentally challenged. Even though they commit crimes, it seems inhumane to put them to death. This poses difficulty in our judicial system. In the Congressional Digest March 2019 issue, the Supreme Court interprets cruel and unusual punishment, and in fact ruled mentally ill people should not be sentenced to death, but the issue seems to fall in the hands of the state court. The Supreme Court stated, recognizing that there are no consensus on which offenders are in fact considered retarded, the majority felt that the task for deciding or making this determination should be left in the states. I think it's safe to say that although this is a controversial debate, the facts speak for themselves. The death penalty is not effective and should be abolished in the United States. If more people do not stand up and fight against the death penalty being invoked, then many innocent people will lose their lives. It doesn't have to be that way. On the surface, the death penalty may look like the appropriate punishment for the most heinous of crimes. I'm asking you to take a stand. Vote against the death penalty. Do your research. Look at statistics and cases, and ultimately set the innocent free. Thank you.